That you are not only our champion in the boxing area, but you're also a champion of justice and peace and human dignity. Thank you.
3 weeks after that fight, Federal District Court in New York said that the Boxing Commission had been wrong to deny Ali a license, and Ali had to be permitted to fight, as they should have said years ago. That allowed the Ali fight with Bonavena.
He's chopping at him with the left. A good left by Bonavena.
Ali didn't have the speed to avoid punches or the reflexes that he had, but he learned he could stand and fight.
Oh, that left floored him. If he goes down again, it's over. Ali is the knockout winner.
He fights in December with Bonavena, a horribly tough fight. And then in February, he faces one of the best boxers of that era.
You're not fighting Glory, you're not fighting Oscar Bonavena, you're not fighting Sonny Liston, you fighting Joe Frazier.
Everybody knows that's not the point.
That's the point.
Joe, what's your prediction?
My prediction, the fight wouldn't go the distance.
Oh, won't
I'll
go the
stop
distance.
him.
Stop me.
You.
Joe Frazier was the ultimate exponent of what is known as the Philadelphia left hook. The Philadelphia left hook has a heart and a soul and a mind and a will of its own.
Joe was a nice guy, but he hit his mother with that hook that she got in the ring with.
How you gonna catch me and hit me, Joe? I'm too fast. I'll be smoking right on you. Well, you gonna be smoking and I ain't gonna be joking. How about that? Hey, look at, hey, Clay. Hey, Clay. Hey, Clay. Clay.
Ali was not training at his best. He was sleeping late. He wasn't running like he should. And it really ticked me off. Everybody's talking about how he's gonna knock out Joe Frazier. He's a pushover. He's easy, man.
How you gonna have 2 champions of the world? He's the alternate champion. The real champion is back now.
Wasn't that he underestimated? He figured he could handle him. Short guy, busybody. He was tall, naturally better with all departments instead of aggressiveness. What Joe had was aggressiveness.
Is there anything personal between you and Clay? Do you dislike the man?
I dislike nobody. Unless they do something to me real bad.
Clumsy, ugly, flat-footed Joe Frazier. I'll show you what a real champion is.
Joe resented some of the things that Ali said. He thought that they went beyond promoting the fight and got into the personal realm.
They jab him, they hook him, they uppercut him with lefts and rights. They just keep his head going. And
Muhammad was a master showman, a master mesmerizer. He had Joe Frazier eaten out of his hand. Muhammad Ali never disliked Joe Frazier.
if Joe Frazier hits me, I'm going to get on my knees.
I even went to Angelo Dundee. I says, Angelo, just give me a $25 seat ticket up in the balcony somewhere, and I'm wearing black that night because he's losing the fight.
It was the biggest event of all time. We got each fighter $2.5 million, an unheard of sum at the time.
I don't think there'll ever be a sporting event like that one. And the build-up was such that the two fighters came to symbolize all of the hopes, aspirations, fears that people outside the ring had.
It was electric. People who were absolute superstars were like sitting in the 20th row.
A packed house at Madison Square Garden.
We had two undefeated heavyweights. Joe Frazier was viewed as the white man's champion, the guy who was for the war. Here was Ali, our champion, and this was going to be the test of who was right and who was wrong.
And now we're ready. Muhammad Ali may try a blitz. He got in that good left hook. Frazier bobbing and weaving all the time. It's been a close round. Muhammad Ali is scoring heavily, but Joe keeps coming in.
To me, it was a close fight. Muhammad played with Joe Frazier too much.
Muhammad Ali had the fun, but Frazier landed the punch.
He was patting him on the head instead of sticking to business. I felt like hitting him over the head with the stool.
The crowd is chanting Ali, and Joe says, come on out and fight. is just pouring everything in there now. Ali is making very little return.
I don't know whether he was resting at that time, but he was being punished. He did give a few rounds away.
The crowd before were yelling Ali, Ali. Now they're yelling Joe, Joe.
Ali began to scream, "You have to fall, fool. I'm God. Don't you understand? I'm God." At which point, Joe Frazier slipped the jab and said, "Well, God's going to get his ass whipped tonight."
He was laying on the ropes, playing with Joe Frazier. Bang, he got nailed with a left hook. He was out in the corner. Then he started moving all over on bad legs.
He's holding on desperately. Muhammad Ali in real trouble. Muhammad Ali rocked him to the rope. He almost went down. 10 seconds.
The round is over. The round is over. What a round.
I don't know how he survived that round. That was the toughest round in that fight.
Frazier really clobbered him with everything in the book.
When he came back in the corner, I was a little leery about him getting out of there. But that's a mark of a great fighter that could suck it up, come back.
Ali scoring repeatedly and seeming to get stronger. For a man who was virtually out in round 11, he's come back amazingly. This is the final round of the fight, and what a fight it's been.
15 and final round. Time is important here.
Frazier saw that opening and hit him perfectly in the right spot, right at the tip of the chin. I don't believe I even got to the count of 2. He was right up. Had he stayed down, he might have had a few more seconds rest.
So many wanted to watch this liberal, black draft dodger get his ass kicked. He wouldn't give him the comfort of him staying down. He jumped up. And I think for a lot of us right then, he became forevermore the heavyweight champion.
Frazier is tired, and his eyes are closing.
The winner by unanimous decision and still heavyweight champion of the world, Joe Frazier.
When he lost, it was devastating. It was devastating. I cried a lot that night. I cried a lot that night.
We had seen this undefeatable guy. How is he going to take defeat? Is he going to feel crushed? Not at all. The guy takes defeat like he takes victory.
You know, I've been always handing out the defeats, so now I'm defeated, and now I can see how other people felt. And when I do come back, if I ever do, I'll have more of a hunger, determination, which is something you lose in the intoxication of so-called greatness. And I would also...
He was sore and he was hurting, and he was sorry.
Here he had just lost the biggest fight of his life, and he doesn't have the title, first defeat of his career, but then 3 weeks later, he wins a bigger one.
He just bought me an orange in the grocery store, and the grocery owner came out and grabbed me and hugged me with tears in his eyes, little black fella, and told me that you've just been vindicated and you're free. 8 judges all voted in your favor.
I don't believe the High Court had any alternative politically. Can you imagine putting Ali in prison? There's no prison that would have been allowed to stand.
Either go to jail or go to the army. But there is another alternative. And that alternative is justice.
Now everybody realizes that maybe he fought Joe Frazier a little bit too soon. So he began to fight maybe the equivalent of what was Joe Louis's Bum of the Month Club, where he fought fighters that obviously were not in his class, and he began to knock these fighters off, pointing for a rematch with Frazier.
I have 2 chauffeurs, but I drive them. Driving and listening to Little Richard. Where you want to go? In your car, come on.
To see Ali become a father for the first time, it was a good experience.
Now, I'm not having no trouble out of you. There ain't but one big mouth in this family. There ain't gonna be but one big mouth in this family. Say hi. Miriam, say hi.
When the twins came, it was a shock to both of us. He spent a lot of time with the children.
Muhammad Ali saw it in his first steps. Here he goes. Oh.
It was good to see how happy a man is to have his first son.
Come on.
I think he passed out right there in the operating room. And when I got out of recovery, who slayed in my bed but Ali? Ali is out. TKO.
Does it tempt you to stop fighting now so you can be at home with them while they're growing up?
Well, after the next Joe Frazier rematch, I will be finished.
Either way.
I gotta get Joe Frazier. Daddy's going to fight. You wanna go with him? You can't. Can you fight? Do you fight? No, you don't fight. You can't go.
They were a great team, those two. They were a great team. They were beautiful together and had good children. Belinda truly cared for him.
I mean, those were good days.
I honestly don't feel as if Muhammad took advantage of me. I was 17 years old and he was 33 years old. Elijah Muhammad had more than one wife. So it was easy for me to accept the concept of a man having more than one wife.
In our religion, they always say a man can have more than one wife. That's a game that the men always use.
I didn't consider myself one of the wives. You know, I never lived openly with him. You could say I was more or less a mistress.
I don't think any woman should marry a heavyweight champion and expect that he's going to be a monogamous animal.
Muhammad got to camp in Deer Lake. It was a great camp. The master director, the master producer was Muhammad.
This is a real fight camp. First one in the world of the kind I can boast. There's not another camp in the world built just for boxing.
Everything fluctuated around him.
In Deer Lake, Muhammad and I would go running every morning up in the mountains. We were very, very close.
He wanted to have his pie, cake, and ice cream, too. Muhammad gives me this big, mango, macho, I'm gonna do what I want, I'm the greatest, you can't do anything about it. Fun.
His explanation of his relationship with Belinda was that it wasn't a love match, that they were basically more like brother and sister. And Muhammad knew that I loved him, and Muhammad loved me very much.
I met him when he wasn't fighting. He wasn't making any money. I was on the road with him doing trips where I bought the gas. He would call me up and I would help bail him out of a hotel room because he didn't have enough money.
How we divided our time up with Muhammad was very haphazardly. I mean, you're talking about a man at that time who was traveling. He would be in one city, one day, another country the next day. I guess basically it was just a matter of convenience. Belinda and myself stayed with the children most of the time.
Ali having children outside of the family, out of wedlock, it hurts at first.
Kalia was born June 16th, 1973. She was born on Father's Day.
Belinda didn't find out about Mia until like Mia was maybe 2 or 3 years old. It was kind of like a secret.
If he had the child, he has to support it. I have nothing against a child.
Ali was a great womanizer. You might not like me saying it to the public, but it was a fact. I'm one. Takes one to know one.
He's always been a flirtatious person.
Women always wanted to be with the champ.
It wasn't so much his love or anything, it was just something to make somebody happy.
Muhammad, as secure as he appeared, he was very, very insecure about a lot of things.
What got him through high school was his popularity. God knows he never absorb the teachings.
Well, one day I would like to take up some course mainly on reading and writing. I don't read too good and I don't spell at all, hardly.
He doesn't read, and he is not given to introspective thought. If he was receiving the messages of the black Muslims, which he parrots back to you.
We always was constantly telling him that his wife shouldn't be the boss, that in Islam you don't have a wife as your boss.
If she don't like it, put her out, find another one. And if she don't like it, find another one. Then that's a man. My first one wouldn't wear a dress as long. A beautiful black woman wouldn't do what I said. She wanted to go along with the Western white style. I put her out of the house and gave her $150,000. Now I got a good Muslim woman who's young and better.
I was, and I still am, amazed about Muhammad Ali.
I'm so pretty I should be chiseled and gold.
When he was really himself and really happy around other people, aside from myself, was with Angelo Dundee and Boudini.
Thank you very much. Careful, that's a two-painter.
No, Muhammad, once in a while, used to kid around with me because we used to borrow each other's comb. You know, I had hair at one time.
Bodini Brown. He'd come up with all kind of slangs.
Look like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Oh, I'm a young man from
Life was like a fraternity house. Well, we were very proud that we were in this group called the Muhammad Ali Entourage.
Everybody was a necessary person. It was like electricity for Muhammad. Every guy that was around us was there because Muhammad enjoyed those guys.
We all got good money. We all made a tremendous amount of money when you were with him, because so many things were available to you. His brother, Rahman, he was in the entourage. He wanted to be the same person Ali was, but he never had the great talent to be a world champion boxer. His father was a member of the entourage, what we call a player. Liked pretty women. By being with his son, that afforded him a good life. Ali bought mother and father home. He bought both of them big cars.
To try to explain the depth of a Muhammad Ali is impossible. He just was a good human being.
Some people does manipulate Ali and they know he's good-hearted.
As an example, Houdini couldn't contain his vices. He stole the champion's belt and hocked it.
And Ali forgives sometimes instantly.
If you gave him $1 million, he'd give it away to help people, because he loved to help people.
Do you know your dad is the baddest man in the world? Do you know your daddy can whoop all the men in the whole world? And you don't...
To watch Ali in the ring, it's almost like being happy and hurt at the same time. The first time I really wanted him to quit was the Norton fight.
The press didn't give me much of a chance. The fans didn't give me much of a chance. To me, it was an honor to fight the man.
Ken Norton was tough to figure out. He had that jerky type of rhythm.
Good left there by Norton. That excited the crowd.
If Muhammad didn't get his jab cooking, he was in trouble.
And Ali just hasn't been right. And I think he may have cracked a tooth in his mouth.
There are many observations of many people as to when the jaw was broken. Ali has stated that it was broken in the first round. I beg to differ with Ali. I say it was about the last 30 seconds of the last round.
Ali's mouth is bloody. The left gets in and a good right. He is all over Ali. He is punching him around the ring.
I hit him with a good left hook when he's moving back toward the ropes, and his mouth was open at that time.
One could believe in miracles. It is a tired Ali and a hurt Ali. This crowd is going wild. They are sensing a decision in favor of unknown Kenny Norton. 7 points Norton, 5 points Ali. Here it is. This is the greatest upset again in boxing history.
He walked over to me after the fight to congratulate me on winning. I remember saying to him that I hope this doesn't affect our friendship in the future. And he smiled and walked off.
Took him to the hospital. And actually, after he got in his jaw wired and everything else, and he's back in his room, and he's coming out of the anesthesia. I'm actually crying. I felt so terrible. And I sort of leaned over, and he saw me crying. He sort of put his arm on my shoulder. He says, "Don't worry, Ange, we'll be back."
The talk is that Ali is finished, he's washed up, but I have a big surprise for the whole world. The bee has not lost his sting, and the butterfly still has his wing.
Veronica, she wasn't the first. I didn't know she had other plans in mind.
Right here in my homeland is where it shall happen. The king has come home to get his crown.
Well, the king might have been coming home to get his crown, but wearing that crown at that time was a guy by the name of George Foreman.
We could have a new world champion if he kicks this up.
Joe Frazier, the champion, fought this really raw, inexperienced fighter, George Foreman, who knocked Frazier cold and became the champion. Foreman wasn't ready to fight Ali, and so Ali continued on fighting other people like Norton.
Muhammad Ali wins the decision and evens the score against Ken Norton.
Now King comes on the scene. He had never promoted much of anything.
What I bring to promotion is a refreshing approach, imagination.
He offers Ali and Foreman $5 million apiece to fight. And Zaire, an African country.
George Foreman, he's awkward and slow, and he hits hard like Sonny Liston, and I think it's befitting that 1974 stage couldn't be set no better that I retire this man just like I did Liston.
Have you fought many guys who were talkers in their ringing?
No, I never get a chance to talk much. By the time you get to know a fella, it's all over.
In those days, he was a bully. The people around him were afraid of him. Foreman had really brutalized the people who trained him, and they were terrified of him.
George Foreman had annihilated everyone that stepped in the ring with him. I mean, George was a big, strong, young, impervious to pain heavyweight. I remember I was nervous and afraid for Ali.
I think George